Standing in that garden, my husband's words hit me like a sledgehammer. "We have to go. Ava's baby is mine." My heart became shattered. Ava had been my best friend since high school. The woman whose baby shower I had just spent 3 weeks planning, down to every pink balloon and cupcake. The confession came out of nowhere, right in the middle of the party I'd poured my heart into. I could hear the laughter and music from inside, the sound of people celebrating what they thought was my best friend's journey into motherhood. This is the story of how my husband and my best friend's manipulation turned their dream baby shower into the most satisfying revenge you've ever heard. If you've ever been betrayed by someone you trusted, if you've ever wanted to see karma work in real time, you need to hear this entire story. Hit that subscribe button right now, because you're about to witness the most spontaneous, devastating revenge you've ever seen. My name is Vivian. I'm 28 years old, married for 3 years to Lucky, and I work as an event planner. Which, as you'll see, gave me the perfect skill set for what was about to happen. I'm not the type of person who seeks drama. I avoid confrontation like a plague. I believe in loyalty, trust, and handling things maturely. My mom always told me I was too trusting, too willing to see the best in people. "Vivian," she'd say, "your heart's too big for this world." I used to think that was my strength. Now I know it was both my greatest gift and my biggest vulnerability. Growing up, I was the peacekeeper in my family. When my parents fought, I was the one trying to fix things. When my sister got in trouble, I was the one covering for her. I learned early that if you just love people hard enough, if you're loyal enough, if you give enough of yourself, everything will work out. That belief shaped every relationship I've ever had. Ava and I met in junior year of high school in English class. 15 years of friendship that started over arguing about whether Romeo and Juliet was actually a love story or a cautionary tale about toxic relationships. Ironic, considering how our story would end. She was my maid of honor. I was supposed to be her son's godmother. We talked every single day for over a decade, shared everything. Our fears, our dreams, our deepest secrets. Or so I thought. We had this tradition where we'd send each other a voice note every morning. Just a quick "good morning, beautiful" to start the day. Rain or shine, good days or bad, that message was always there. It was our thing, our sacred ritual that proved we'd always be there for each other. Lucky, my husband, was everything I thought I wanted. He had a stable job in finance, a quiet personality that balanced my more outgoing nature, and never caused trouble. He was the opposite of the drama-filled relationships I'd watched my friends navigate. We built what I thought was a solid marriage, based on honesty and respect. I remember our wedding day, how he looked at me like I was his whole world during our first dance. How he promised, in front of everyone we loved, that he would never hurt me. His voice broke when he said those vows. I believed him completely. God, I was so naive. We had this Sunday morning ritual where we'd make pancakes together and read the newspaper in bed. He'd do the crossword while I planned the week ahead. Simple, peaceful, perfect. That's what I thought love looked like. Quiet, steady. What I'm about to tell you will show you how quickly everything you believe about the people you love can shatter in a single moment. How 15 years of friendship and 3 years of marriage can be revealed as complete lies in one devastating conversation. And how sometimes, when your world falls apart, the universe hands you the perfect opportunity for justice when you least expect it. To understand the depth of this betrayal, you need to understand what we had before it all turned to ash. Ava and I were inseparable through high school, college, everything. She was there when my dad died my sophomore year of college. I'm talking about holding my hair back when I threw up from crying so hard, sleeping on my dorm room floor for a week because I couldn't be alone, helping me write his eulogy when I couldn't see through my tears. I was there when she had her first real heartbreak with Jake Matthews' senior year. We ate an entire cheesecake while watching a movie and crying. I let her ugly cry on my shoulder for hours. We made a pact that night that no guy would ever come between us, that we'd always choose each other first. When I met Lucky in college at a boring finance club meeting, because yes, I was that girl who went to finance club meetings, even though I was an art major, she was the first person I called. Not my mom, not my sister, Ava. I remember exactly what I said. Ava, I think I just met my husband. She screamed so loud her roommate thought someone was dying. She made me describe every detail of our conversation 3 times. When he proposed 2 years later in the same coffee shop where we had our first date, she cried harder than I did. She was there for every milestone. Helped me pick out my wedding dress at 4 different shops because I'm indecisive. Spent 3 days with me calling venues and tasting cakes. Threw me the most beautiful bachelorette party in Charleston, where we got matching temporary tattoos that said Sisters Forever. When she started dating her ex-boyfriend Samuel 2 years ago, I helped her through every relationship milestone because that's what sisters do for each other. Or what I thought sisters did. I listened to her complain about his mother for hours, literally hours, because the woman apparently hated every girlfriend Samuel had ever brought home. I helped her plan romantic dinners, drove her to buy the perfect outfit for their 6-month anniversary. When he broke up with her last year, I was ready to fight him in a Wendy's parking lot. That's how much I loved her. The pregnancy announcement came 6 months ago. She called me at 7 a.m. on a Tuesday, crying, happy tears, saying she was pregnant but scared because Samuel had just left her 2 weeks earlier. She was going to be a single mom. I remember exactly where I was standing in my kitchen when she told me, right by the window that looks out onto our garden where I grow tomatoes and herbs. I remember thinking, thank God she has us. She won't be alone. Of course, I immediately went into support mode because that's who I am. I fix things, I take care of people, I show up. It's what I've always done, what I was raised to do. I threw her a small announcement party with just close friends and family. Pink and blue decorations because we didn't know the gender yet. Her favorite strawberry cake from the bakery downtown. I drove her to doctor appointments when she felt sick, sometimes sitting in that waiting room for hours because she was nervous about going alone. I researched cribs and strollers with her, made spreadsheets comparing prices and safety ratings because that's what you do for someone you love. When she asked me to plan her baby shower, I was honored. This was going to be the celebration of a lifetime. I had 3 months to plan, unlimited budget, because Lucky and I were doing well financially, and all the connections in the world through my event planning business. I was going to make this the most beautiful, memorable baby shower anyone had ever seen. She never once mentioned feeling uncomfortable around Lucky during this entire time, never acted weird when the 3 of us hung out. She'd hug him hello and goodbye, like she always had. She'd laugh at his stupid dad jokes. She'd ask his opinion on baby names. Looking back, that should have been my first red flag, how effortlessly she could lie to my face while asking me to pass the salt at dinner. The first weird thing happened about 4 months before the baby shower, right around the time Ava started her 2nd trimester. Lucky started acting differently around her. Not suspicious different. Protective different. Like overly protective, in a way that didn't make sense for someone who was just his wife's best friend. When she'd mention being tired or stressed about single motherhood, he'd get this look. This intense, concerned look that went way beyond normal sympathy. Like he wanted to say something but couldn't. When she'd talk about finances or doctor bills, he'd fidget with his hands, shift in his seat, get uncomfortable in a way that seemed personal, rather than just sympathetic. I started noticing other things too. He'd offer to drive her places when I couldn't, which was sweet, I thought. He'd ask about her appointments, remember details about her pregnancy symptoms that even I sometimes forgot. He'd bring up her name in conversations when she wasn't even relevant to what we were discussing. Oh, Ava mentioned this restaurant. Ava said she's craving Thai food. Ava thinks we should watch this movie. Little things that individually meant nothing. Together, they painted a picture I wasn't ready to see. Then there was the day he came home with prenatal vitamins. Not regular vitamins, expensive prescription-grade prenatal vitamins. When I asked why, he said he'd read an article about how important nutrition was during pregnancy and thought Ava should have the best. I thought it was thoughtful. Now I didn't realize he was trying to take care of his baby. Then I found the texts. I wasn't snooping. I need you to understand that. I'm not the type of person who goes through phones or checks up on people. That's not who I am. I trust until given a reason not to. Lucky left his phone on the kitchen counter while he showered. It buzzed with a message from A with a heart emoji. I'd never seen that contact before, and something in my stomach just dropped. You know that feeling when your intuition screams at you even though your brain hasn't caught up yet? So I searched the contact and realized it was Ava, with shock and my hand shaking. I read the message again. The message said, "Thank you for yesterday. I know this is complicated, but I'm grateful you care so much about the baby." I stared at that message for what felt like hours, but was probably 30 seconds. My hands were shaking. I knew I shouldn't open it, but I also knew I couldn't pretend I hadn't seen it. My heart was pounding so hard I could hear it in my ears. So I opened their conversation, and my entire world shifted. Months of messages. How are you feeling today? Did you eat enough? I wish I could be there for the appointment. You looked beautiful today. I can't stop thinking about our baby. And then, photos. Ultrasound photos that she hadn't shown me yet. Pictures from doctor appointments I didn't even know she'd had. Messages where she called him Daddy and he called her beautiful mama. My world shattered at that moment. Everything I thought I knew about my marriage, my friendship, my life, gone. But here's the thing. I didn't confront him. I didn't scream or throw his phone against the wall like every instinct in my body was telling me to do. I took screenshots. Every single message, every photo, every endearment. I thought strategically, even while my world was crumbling around me. But I didn't confront Lucky. I snapped back as if nothing had happened. That night, after Lucky fell asleep, I transferred all the screenshots to a secure folder on my laptop. I started paying attention to everything, every glance between them, every inside joke, every moment that suddenly made sense in a horrifying new way. I knew I needed more information before making any moves. I couldn't just confront them based on text messages. I needed the whole truth. So I started investigating like my life depended on it. Because in a way, it did. I started by going through our credit card statements. You know what I found? Charges I couldn't account for. Dinners at restaurants we'd never been to together. Movie tickets purchased when I was out of town visiting my sister. Hotel charges during times when Lucky said he was working late. Jewelry purchases. Jewelry I'd never seen. The jewelry was the one that broke me. A delicate gold necklace with a small pendant. When I confronted him about the charge, he said it was for my birthday. 3 months away. I believed him. I actually thanked him for being so thoughtful. 2 weeks later, I saw Ava wearing that exact necklace. I started following them. Not stalking, I'm not crazy, but paying attention to where they were when they said they were somewhere else. Lucky would say he was working late, but his office building would be dark when I drove by. Ava would say she was at prenatal yoga, but the studio would be closed. I hired a private investigator. Yes, really. Used money from my own business account that Lucky didn't have access to. The investigator confirmed what I already suspected. They were meeting regularly. Hotels, restaurants, even her apartment when I was supposed to be at work. The confirmation came 2 months before the baby shower. Ava asked me to come over to help set up her nursery. We'd been planning this for weeks. I'd made Pinterest boards, researched themes, even bought decorations with my own money because I wanted everything to be perfect for her. When I arrived at her apartment, she was on the phone in the kitchen. The front door was open, so I could hear her clearly before she saw me. She was saying, "No, she can't know yet. The shower is too important. After that, we'll figure out how to tell her together. I promise, baby, we'll figure it out." She saw me standing there in the doorway and quickly hung up, claiming it was her sister calling about family drama. But I knew that tone. I knew the way she sounded when she was talking to someone she loved. I'd heard her use that voice with Samuel, and I'd heard her use it on the phone before when she thought I wasn't listening. But what Ava didn't realize is that I wasn't protecting anyone anymore. I was gathering intelligence. Over the next few weeks, I discovered the real scope of their relationship through more careful investigation. This wasn't a one-time mistake. This was a full-blown affair that had been going on for 7 months. 7 months of lies, manipulation, and betrayal. But here's where it gets really twisted. through their continued text messages, which I was now monitoring because I'd figured out Lucky's passcode, I discovered that Ava wasn't just passively letting me plan this shower. She was actively manipulating the situation for her own benefit. She had told Lucky that she was going to tell me the truth at the baby shower unless he did it first. But here's the kicker. She wasn't planning to tell me to come clean. She was planning to position herself as the reluctant truth teller who was trying to protect me from my lying husband. She had it all planned out. She was going to reluctantly reveal that Lucky was the father, claim she'd been trying to get him to tell me for months, come off and make herself look like the friend who finally couldn't bear to see me living a lie. She wanted to control the narrative completely, make Lucky the villain and herself the hero. What she didn't count on was Lucky's weak stomach for confrontation and his complete inability to handle guilt. For the next 2 months, I became someone I didn't recognize. Patient, calculating, 2 steps ahead of everyone, but also empty. I would wake up next to Lucky every morning and feel nothing. No anger, no sadness, just this hollow ache where my heart used to be. I would hug Ava when we met for coffee and feel like I was embracing a stranger. The hardest part wasn't the planning or the anger. It was the loneliness. I couldn't tell anyone what I was going through. I couldn't cry to my sister or call my mom for advice because I was protecting a secret that was destroying me from the inside. I was completely alone with the knowledge that the 2 people I loved most had betrayed me in the deepest way possible. But I channeled that loneliness into focus. I documented everything while planning the most elaborate baby shower of my career. Every text message between them that I could access, every weird interaction, every lie they told me about where they'd been or who they'd seen. I kept a journal with dates, times, and conversations. I screenshotted bank statements showing money leaving our account that I couldn't account for. I consulted a divorce lawyer without telling Lucky, used my lunch breaks to meet with her. I moved important documents to my sister's house, our marriage certificate, insurance papers, anything that proved what was mine. I opened my own bank account and started redirecting my direct deposit, slowly building a nest egg they knew nothing about. But here's where it gets interesting. I wasn't planning to expose them at the baby shower. I was planning to wait until after to handle everything quietly and privately. The baby shower was just supposed to be my final gift to our friendship before I ended it forever. I threw myself into planning this shower with an intensity that surprised even me. I spent 3 weeks on decorations alone. Handcrafted centerpieces, custom balloon arrangements, a dessert table that looked like something out of a magazine. I hired a photographer, a caterer, even a violinist for background music during the gift opening. This was going to be the most beautiful, most memorable baby shower anyone had ever seen. I invited everyone, all our mutual friends, family members, even people from Ava's work. I wanted this to be the celebration she'd always dreamed of. What I didn't realize was that I was actually setting the stage for the most spectacular downfall of my life. I had no idea that Ava had other plans that would blow up in the most spectacular way possible. Going through Lucky's phone records and credit card statements more thoroughly, I discovered this wasn't just a 7-month affair. The financial betrayal went even deeper than I'd imagined. Hotel charges dating back 10 months, restaurant bills from places I'd never heard of, movie tickets, jewelry purchases, even a weekend getaway to a cabin in the mountains, all while I was visiting my sick grandmother in Florida. They'd been having a relationship for almost a year, not even 7 months. She'd crafted this entire narrative where Lucky was the predator who took advantage of her when she was vulnerable after Samuel left, where she was the victim who'd been pressured into staying quiet, where I was the poor, clueless wife who deserved to know the truth. She even planned what she was going to say. "Vivian, I can't keep this secret anymore. Lucky made me promise not to tell you, but I can't watch you live a lie. He's the father of my baby, and I'm so sorry." She was going to make herself look like the hero while destroying my marriage and making Lucky look like a manipulative monster. What she didn't count on was Lucky's complete inability to handle pressure and his tendency to crack under guilt. She gave him an ultimatum: tell me by the cake-cutting ceremony, or she would. But she had no idea that he would completely fall apart and ruin her entire plan. The day of the shower arrived, and it was perfect. Absolutely perfect. The weather was gorgeous, sunny but not too hot. The decorations looked like something out of Pinterest. 35 guests arrived on time, all bearing beautiful gifts and genuine excitement for what they thought was my best friend's journey into motherhood. Ava looked radiant in her pink maternity dress, a dress I had helped her pick out, by the way, during a shopping trip where she'd tried on 7 different options, and I'd patiently given my opinion on each one. Lucky wore the shirt I'd picked out for him, a button-down that said, "Dad," in small letters on the chest. He thought it was just festive. He had no idea I was marking him as the father. The first 2 hours went perfectly. We played games, guessed the baby food flavors, baby name charades, that silly game where you measure the mom's belly with toilet paper. Ava was glowing, opening presents, thanking everyone for their generosity. She kept looking at me with such genuine affection, such gratitude for putting this all together. It almost broke my heart all over again. Lucky was mingling awkwardly but trying to be social, making jokes about not knowing anything about babies, asking people about their kids. But I could see the tension in his shoulders, the way he kept checking his phone, the sweat on his forehead despite the comfortable temperature. But I was watching everything. Watching how they carefully avoided standing too close to each other. Watching how they made sure not to make eye contact for too long. Watching how nervous Lucky got every time someone asked Ava about the baby's father. The tension was delicious. I could see Ava getting more confident as the party went on. She thought she had everything under control. She was playing the perfect pregnant woman, graciously accepting gifts and attention, occasionally rubbing her belly in that way expectant mothers do. She had no idea that Lucky was slowly falling apart. As we got closer to cake time, I noticed Ava starting to position herself. She made sure she was near Lucky, near me, in a spot where everyone could see and hear her when she made her big revelation. She was preparing for her moment of truth, her chance to control the narrative. Then came cake time. As we gathered around the beautiful 3-tier cake I'd ordered, vanilla with raspberry filling, Ava's favorite, I saw her take a deep breath. This was it. This was her moment. I raised the knife to cut the cake and everyone gathered around, phones out, ready to capture the moment. That's when I saw Ava whisper something to Lucky. His face went completely white. She smiled at him, but her eyes were cold, threatening. That's when I realized she was about to execute her plan. But Lucky couldn't handle it. I watched him start to hyperventilate. His hands were shaking, sweat was pouring down his face. As everyone was laughing and taking pictures, as I was posing with the knife for what should have been a beautiful moment, he suddenly grabbed my arm and said, "Vivian, I need to tell you something, now." Ava's face went from confident to panicked in seconds. This wasn't her plan. She wanted to be the one to tell me, to control how it came out, to position herself as the reluctant hero, but Lucky's guilt was eating him alive, and her pressure had finally caused him to crack. He pulled me outside into the garden, leaving 35 confused guests and one very angry Ava behind, and that's when he said the words that changed everything. "Ava's baby is mine." Standing in that garden, with the sounds of confused chatter and clinking glasses behind us, I realized I had been handed the perfect gift. Ava had been so confident in her ability to manipulate this situation, but Lucky's breakdown had just ruined her entire plan. I looked at my husband, this man who had lied to me for months, who had stolen from me, who had betrayed me with my best friend, and I made a decision. I was going to use this moment for everything it was worth. I told Lucky to wait in the garden. I said I needed a moment to process, that I would be back in a few minutes to talk. The look of relief on his face was pathetic. He actually thought confessing would make him feel better, that I might somehow understand or forgive him. Then I walked back into that party, and I did something that still gives me chills thinking about it. I walked straight up to Ava, who was trying to manage the confused guests, explaining that there was just a little situation that needed to be handled. She saw me coming, and her face lit up. She probably thought Lucky had told me, and I was coming to her for comfort, for support. She had no idea what was about to hit her. I said, loud enough for everyone in the immediate area to hear. Ava, Lucky just told me the most interesting thing outside, about your baby's father. The room didn't go completely silent immediately. People were still chatting, still eating cake, still opening gifts, but the people near us stopped talking, stopped moving. You could feel the energy shift. Ava's face went white. She knew her plan was falling apart, but she didn't know how much I actually knew. She tried to stutter out some response, something about how she'd been meaning to talk to me, how she was sorry I had to find out this way. That's when I pulled out my phone and said, clear as day, should I read everyone the messages where you planned this whole manipulation? The ones where you threatened to expose your affair unless Lucky confessed today? Or would you like to tell our friends and family yourself how you've been playing both of us for months? Now the room did go silent. Completely, utterly silent. You could hear the music still playing in the background, but every conversation had stopped. Every eye was on us. I started reading from my phone. Tell her at the baby shower, or I will. I can't keep protecting you when she deserves to know the truth. The room erupted. Not with anger at me, but with shock at Ava. People were gasping, covering their mouths, looking back and forth between us like they were watching a tennis match. But I wasn't done. I looked around the room at all these people who had brought gifts, who had celebrated what they thought was my best friend's pregnancy, who had trusted us both, and I said, this baby shower was supposed to celebrate new life and friendship. Instead, it's exposed 7 months of betrayal, manipulation, and lies. But you know what? I'm grateful. Because now I know exactly who these people really are. Now I can see the truth about the two people I trusted most in the world. Ava tried to defend herself, tried to explain, but her voice was shaking and people were already starting to leave. She kept saying things like, it's not what it looks like, and you don't understand the whole situation. But I had screenshots. I had evidence. I had 7 months of lies documented in black and white. My sister, who had been quietly filming the whole thing on her phone because she knew something was up, stepped forward and said, Vivian, do you want me to show everyone the financial records? Because yes, I had told my sister everything the week before. I wasn't going into this alone. That's when Lucky finally came back inside. He took one look at the chaos. Guests gathering their purses, Ava crying hysterically, me standing calmly in the middle of it all. And he knew his confession had triggered something much bigger than he'd anticipated. I looked at both of them and said, loud enough for everyone to hear. Lucky has been having an affair with Ava for 7 months. He's been paying her rent, her bills, supporting her pregnancy while lying to me about our finances. And Ava has been manipulating both of us, planning to throw him under the bus today to make herself look like the hero. Then I did something that surprised even me. I walked over to the gift table, picked up the beautiful baby book that my mother had given Ava, a family heirloom that had belonged to my grandmother, and I said, I think I'll be keeping this. Since it seems like everything about this pregnancy has been built on lies. What happened next was like watching a house of cards collapse in slow motion. Ava's mother, who had driven 3 hours to be there, walked up to her daughter and said, Is this true? Have you been lying to everyone? When Ava couldn't answer, couldn't look her in the eye, her mother just shook her head and left. Didn't say goodbye, didn't hug her daughter, just walked out. Lucky's best man from our wedding, David, came up to him and said, How could you do this to Vivian? How could you do this to someone who loved you so much? Lucky just stood there looking broken, unable to defend himself, because there was no defense. I watched as our entire social circle imploded in real time. Couples were having whispered arguments about whose side they were on. People were deleting photos from their phones that they'd taken earlier in the party. Some guests were angry at me for ruining the shower, but most were horrified at what Lucky and Ava had done. The best part was watching Ava's carefully constructed facade completely crumble. She went from confident manipulator to sobbing mess in about 10 minutes. She kept trying to approach me, to explain, to somehow salvage the situation, but I just walked away every time. I told Lucky to pack his things and leave our house by the end of the week. I told him we were done, that I'd already consulted a lawyer, and that he could expect divorce papers soon. The look of shock on his face was almost comical, like he'd thought confessing would somehow make things better, instead of worse. I told Ava that our friendship was over, and if she ever contacted me again, I'd make sure everyone in our social circle, her workplace, and her family knew the full extent of her manipulation. I meant it. I was done protecting people who had never protected me. The aftermath was immediate and brutal, but also surprisingly liberating. Guests started leaving in waves. Some stopped to hug me and tell me how sorry they were. Others just left quietly, clearly uncomfortable with the drama. A few people actually thanked me for exposing the truth. Apparently, some of our friends had suspected something was going on but hadn't known how to tell me. Ava was left with a destroyed reputation, a baby on the way, and no support system. Most of our mutual friends chose sides immediately, and they chose mine. Her work friends who had been at the shower started treating her differently. Her family was humiliated. She'd played a dangerous game and lost everything. Lucky came home that night to find me calmly packing his belongings. I'd already changed the locks. My locksmith friend owed me a favor from a wedding I'd planned for his daughter. I told him he could stay at his brother's place while we worked out the divorce details. He tried to explain, tried to justify what he'd done. He said it started as emotional support for Ava and just happened. He said he'd been planning to tell me after the baby was born. He said he never meant for it to go this far. I listened to his excuses for about 30 seconds before I said, "Save it for your lawyer." The financial reckoning was everything I'd hoped for and more. Lucky had spent $15,000 of our joint savings supporting Ava without my knowledge. Not the $12,000 I'd originally calculated. My lawyer categorized it as financial infidelity and asset dissipation, which in our state is grounds for an unequal division of marital assets. I got the house, our beautiful 3-bedroom house with the garden where I grow herbs and tomatoes. I got the car, the SUV we'd bought together, planning for kids we'd never have. I got 75% of our joint assets, including his 401k contributions during our marriage. Lucky got visitation rights with his son and child support obligations that will follow him for the next 18 years. But here's the really satisfying part. Because Ava had been essentially living off Lucky's financial support, and because he now had to pay child support and alimony to me, his ability to support her lifestyle disappeared overnight. She had to move back in with her parents at 28 years old, pregnant and humiliated. 6 weeks later, Ava gave birth to a healthy baby boy. Lucky was in the delivery room, but their relationship was already falling apart. Turns out, when your entire connection is built on lies, manipulation, and betrayal, it doesn't survive the pressure of real life. Within 3 months, they weren't even speaking, except about custody arrangements. Lucky realized that Ava had manipulated him just as much as she'd manipulated me. Ava realized that Lucky was weak, unreliable, and not the partner she'd thought she was getting. They both got exactly what they deserved, each other's worst qualities. Ava lost her job 3 months later. Her boss, who had been at the baby shower and witnessed the entire meltdown, decided she couldn't trust someone who could lie so easily and for so long. If she could manipulate her best friend for months, her boss told mutual friends, how do I know she won't manipulate clients or coworkers? Lucky's career took a hit too. Word got around his office about what he'd done. Small town, big gossip network. While he didn't lose his job, he was passed over for a promotion he'd been expecting. His reputation as a reliable, trustworthy guy was shot. Some people thought I went too far by exposing them so publicly. They said I should have handled it privately, that I humiliated them unnecessarily. But here's the thing. They humiliated me for months with their lies. They made me complicit in my own betrayal. They deserved to face the consequences of their choices. I learned that sometimes, when people wrong you, the best thing you can do is tell the truth loudly and clearly. Let them deal with the consequences of their own actions. Don't protect people who never protected you. Through mutual friends, I hear updates about their situation. Lucky and Ava tried to make it work for about 6 months after the baby was born, but it was a disaster. They fought constantly. Neither trusted the other. They both realized they'd destroyed their lives for a relationship that was never real to begin with. Ava tried to reach out when her son turned 6 months old. She sent a long email saying she wanted to rebuild our friendship, that she'd learned from her mistakes, that she missed me. I read it twice, then blocked her email address. Forgiveness doesn't mean giving people access to hurt you again. Their son is beautiful. I've seen pictures through social media before I blocked them both. He looks like Lucky, but has Ava's eyes. Sometimes I wonder what kind of aunt I would have been. What kind of godmother? But then I remember that my role in their story ended the day they chose to betray me. If you enjoyed this story, like, subscribe, and share with others, so they can learn too. See you in our next video.